Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one. I'm really appreciate you guys being here. This whiskey was a pretty long time in the making, actually. Um, I mean, obviously 30 years, but I mean, even for me personally. So when I first started working on Blade and Bow, obviously when they expanded my scope at Diageo, the first place I wanted to come was Stitzel-Weller. Like, I can go anywhere I want. I'm going to come here. And I was really curious. There's so much mythology about this place. Like, there's so much legend about this place. It's almost built up to where it can be really hard to tell fact from fiction. And, like, what is the myth? And like the legend of this place has gotten so big. So I was really curious to start to try and dig in. And I hired a friend of mine, an historian, Noah Rothbaum, to help me because I don't, in fact, have the patience to listen to like 8-hour oral histories. So bless him. And we like also dug through a lot of archives together that came for that venture. Really hoped to find a lot of like secret history of Stitzel, like mostly found weird liqueurs from the 90s. But I was very curious and really curious specifically about what made this place special. Like, I think we all agree it is special, but it's really hard to put a finger on why. And I really, being a distiller, being an engineer, I wanted to get down into the nitty gritty of like, no, but why exactly? Like, was it the yeast strain? Was it this? Was it that? I very much want to talk about what I learned in the history of it. Because one of the things that I learned is that the eras of this place have changed quite a bit. Like what this distillery looked like pre-prohibition, what it looked like, what this physical place looked like in 1935 when they built it, and how they were making whiskey, how they're making whiskey in the 50s and 60s. And how they're making whiskey later was quite different. But the liquid I was obviously the most interested in to begin with was the liquid that kind of made this place famous. The stuff that was like winning awards and getting famous in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so just doing the math, like that stuff would have been distilled here in the late 70s and early 80s, like kind of into the late 80s. So I was really focused on that particular era of production when I first started. And what really struck me in digging was a lot of how this distillery actually ran was not that different than a distillery that I would build today. Like the milling, the grain, the, mashing procedures, the yeast strains they were using, the fermentation protocols, like the physical construction of the still and the way they were distilling. If I was to build a grain to glass distillery today, like a lot of those parameters would be really similar. And I was kind of, I don't know, I was kind of hoping, I was like, I'm going to find the secret. And it turned out there wasn't one. And which really surprised me at first. But then I was also combing through these rick houses. And the more time I spent here, the more I started to think that it actually was the maturation procedures and the rick houses themselves and the attention to detail there that was really like a driving differentiator, which I guess I should have suspected from the beginning because and the same is true, I think, at Tickle, like, and I've been saying for years, you make good whiskey in the distillery, you make great whiskey when you're blending. Like, you can certainly screw things up in the distillery, but the exact percentage of your mash bill is not the thing that's going to make or break whether your whiskey is good or not good. So I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised because I kind of thought this place was the exception. I don't know. I was like hunting for the secret. And the more I dug, the more I thought actually these rick houses are quite special. And so I started bringing kind of my unique brand of approach to barrels and maturation to here. Specifically, what sometimes annoys maturation teams, but I think is really important, especially with older whiskeys, is I go barrel by barrel by barrel. I don't consider, the older whiskey gets, the more barrel by barrel variation there is. So I started going through a lot of our old stocks, a lot of things that were kind of one-offs and pulling them down and physically assessing every barrel on its own and pulling them to, this one's going to be single barrel, that one's going to be blended, like, really going every single barrel. And that's not something that anyone had done here before. Well then. That's not something that anyone had done here, right? That's not the approach that had been taken here, at least like under Diageo's ownership. And a lot of the whiskey tastes exactly the way that you would expect, when you're pulling a, whatever, 20, 30 something year old whiskey out of a rick house, like the least surprising outcomes, it tastes like wood. So a lot of the whiskey was like that, but there were a lot of whiskeys that really surprised me. And this, I think, so far is one of the ones that really stood out. It was a real gem. So I was going through these whiskeys actually in the summer of 2023 and pulling these barrels down. The first surprise was they were all pretty full, like, so this is maybe they were mislabeled, like what's going on. But this whiskey was consolidated about halfway through its maturation. I think it's probably the most important thing that they did to drive the flavor of this spirit. So by consolidated specifically, I mean, it's not a common practice in bourbon. So let's say you had 100 barrels that 15 years in, they're all like half empty. You take all that whiskey, dump it out into a tank. So it's now all blended together. And then you put it back in those same original barrels, but full. So instead of 100 half full barrels, you now have 50 completely full barrels. That does a couple really important things. One is just like we're talking about the surface area and kind of as the barrel empties and when it's circular and it's on its side, when you get below the halfway point, you kind of start getting this like snowball effect of more surface area to volume, which makes evaporation and extraction faster, and evaporation is faster, so it lowers faster. So like you get this little snowball, which is kind of one of the reasons you don't often find very old bourbons. So one thing that the consolidation process does is sort of restart that, give you, a full barrel. The other thing that it does that I think is quite important is it keeps you're lowering the headspace in the barrel and you're keeping that whole barrel more structurally sound, which is the other way that barrels, you kind of lose older whiskey, right? Like the barrel itself just loses its structural integrity because those dry staves on the top lose their integrity, right? Yeah.
You know when that consolidation took place?
We don't because it's pre-Diageo's ownership, but
Okay.
it just based on the liquid levels, it appears that it was about halfway through to me. So it seems like about 15 years through its maturation, which kind of fits with the acquisition timeline. So that's my best guess. Yeah. So these were relatively full, and a lot of them were much more interesting than I would have expected from whiskey this age. So this particular blend was 42 out of those barrels to create this blend. We should nose it. Let's get into it.
So what was the mash bill that was left here for this? Was it the
So
one that we know, or was it something different?
it's not weeded. It's a rye bourbon. I can't say the exact mash bill because it would sort of give away. Like I can tell you, we no longer own the distillery where this whiskey was distilled. But it would have certainly made sense for it to be in our rick houses. It's a rye bourbon. It's not weeded.
Easy enough.
So this is still pretty boozy. I think it's 54 and a half. Maybe. Yeah, 54 and a half. So the cask strength of this was like bonkers. So I did a lot of dilution to try and figure out where I wanted to actually bottle it. So 54 and a half is, based on quite a bit of bench scale testing. I would encourage like a sip, but then it can take a bit of water, which I think is also sort of unique for older whiskeys. Like I would typically not water anything older than like 18, 17 even. But this can take a little bit. So that's why the droppers are there. I want to give everyone a chance before I say any tasting notes. So I don't want to like color your perceptions, but then I'll tell you what I thought was exceptional about this.
Definitely very fruity. Dried fruit, stewed fruit.
I also get a real kind of honey character, and a bit of citrus, kind of mentholy finish. Subtle. It's not. Yeah, it's a pretty big whiskey. But I think still pretty balanced. What you're expecting, I think, when someone says like, oh, it's a 30-year-old, it's just like licking the inside of the barrel. There's a lot happening here, aromatically.
Most I think that's really kind of interesting, just taking a small sip, is a lot of the vintage whiskeys that I've personally had have felt thin to me. This has more body viscosity in it.
This is a shockingly oily whiskey.
Yeah.
So the concentration of like higher alcohols in this is something I've never seen in any whiskey. One reason it's bottled at 54 and a half. So I quite like the CBV for drinking, but sort of rule of thumb in American whiskeys, you don't really need to worry about chill filtration until you're below 100 proof.
Yeah.
Like this started hazing and flocking at 120. And I was like, what is happening? I started calling friends and they was like, have you ever seen this? But it's all this, the higher alcohol concentration is off the charts. It's really high. And I think that's because of the consolidation. And then it was put into the top floor. So it was put into the 7th floor of a rick house. So like a really intense set of conditions that drove a really high concentration of these like low boiling higher alcohols. So even at this ABV, you can occasionally see some flocking, like if the bottle sits for a long time, or if you like add ice or something, or if you add water, you will definitely see some flocculation. But that was really didn't want to chill filter this whiskey because every time we tested a million filtration parameters and even relatively light ambient filtration, I could still tell the difference in the aromatics. So I ended up doing like a pretty light ambient filtration and just living with the fact that it flocks sometimes. And because I have the whiskey, right?
This bottle is not.
That's what I'm thinking, right? Like, or at least they'll understand, like what it is. And yeah, that was my hope. It's like came down to, okay, if the choice is between it looking pretty and tasting perfect, and like this whiskey is exceptional. Like this is, I took after the blend, I had the 200 ml like sample bottle. I have a million of those. And like, this is the one that sat on my desk, like
As it should.
as it should. And I fully drank the entire sample bottle and had to go back and,
Get a second one.
yeah, just for research purposes.
Research.
It's important.
I really do have to commend you for not trying to release this as hazard proof. Houses the
Thank you.
for all lots of our time.
I mean, eventually I'm sure I will because I also like money.
Mm.
But like, it's meant to be like this, And I think it can be actually, funnily enough, at cash strength, this is sippable. Like you can take a sip, your lips will immediately be numb. But like you can sip it. It's a surprisingly pleasant experience. But also that one sip is kind of all you get.
I think that's one of the things that is interesting. Like this immediate goes back palate to me. So like you do get that alcohol note right
Yeah.
on the front. So you feel like you're drinking something much more proofy
Yeah.
than you're actually drinking.
And it's also got that little bit of mentally character. Like it's a very, in 54.5 is still no sneeze, of an ABV. So like,
Well, in today's world,
Yeah.
snooze fest.
I personally love 109,
Yeah.
but not everyone loves 109 proof. They want 175 proof. 'Cause
Well,
that's
I
the
love
thing.
my palate. And it basically pays my mortgage. So I'm going to be careful with it. Yeah, and this one, so obviously, like, I nosed these in 2023. I actually tanked them at that time, which is also a little bit different. Like, for my innovation process is also kind of, that's one of the new things I brought of like, this is the liquid, this is right now. So I'm going to pull it off into a stainless tank now and then like start the project to figure out what I want to do with it. So for me, I wanted to see the volume that I actually got out of the barrels that I selected and kind of the quality of the blend. And that's when I made the decision like, okay, this deserves to be a follow up to Blade of Bow 22, right? Like this deserves to be as a Blade of Bow brand.
So you said
No.
you said there was 42 barrels in this.
Yes.
Was there one like particular single barrel that you were like,
There were in
that's
fact
money?
5 particular single barrels.
And so how do you go about that from a blending perspective, right? You have 42. How do you go about
So 42 went into this. There are some others that went,
where else?
indeed,
Other projects.
other projects.
Disgusting. Yes.
Yeah. They actually, is funny because like dumping those, you dump one single barrel at this age, it basically feels like a 5-gallon carboy. Like it's like it's in. So like you could fully pick it up and walk away with it. So there were some extensive considerations around where we were going to store that for the 2 years that it took to put together like this beautiful package for it to go in. And I still won't tell anyone where exactly that is because it was really like, I don't want to be the next like NIFO special. So
Tell us about the bottle.
this bottle was manufactured by Walters Berger. Oh, I worked on that. Yeah, it's a French bottle manufacturer that does like a really high quality of glass. And then the leather. So this bottle will have the 5 keys as well. So same way the core bottle has 5 keys, and you become a member of the 5 Keys Club. If you're very ambitious, you could also become a Blade and Bow 35 Keys Club member. So these are numbered keys. This leather strap was made by Clayton and Crew. You guys can check out the number is like on the bottom of the little key.
Number 1.
And we made an even number of all 5. Yeah. Should we do labels out?
Beautiful.
It's stunning, right?
Is
I
it?
just think it's a really stunning bottle.
And where is this glass made out of?
I learned the name of the manufacturer.
Said it once, don't make her say it.
Well, I was trying to see like if it's Italian, is it
It's French.
French?
It's French, Walters Projet, which is confusing because the name kind of looks like it would be German, but it might be. It's a French manufacturer. They're very high quality. Much time was spent on the finish of the glass and how it would be finished, and which I didn't entirely follow, but I saw the samples, so it's beautiful.
So when it comes to like elder statesmen of bourbon, right? Like age-wise, there's not been many offerings much older than this
Yeah,
US
couple,
production, right?
handful. Yeah, I know of a few. I think it's pretty rare. It's hard. Like most barrels this age are empty.
Correct.
So even if you wanted to, it's tough to get it.
And with Diageo's like sister productions, right, worldwide, how do they view this 30-year American product where they could have Scotch, right, that is 50, 60, 70 years old, right?
They has been some of the most gratifying things about this project for me was sharing the whiskey with both some Scottish and Japanese blenders who, whose opinions I very much respect. And were particularly like, oh, like I thought it would be only oak. Like that's their perception. I think of American whiskey in general, but also especially old American whiskey. And then being pleasantly surprised that like it's not only oak.
Yeah.
That
I
there's
think
some
the funniest thing about
complexity.
bottles, please recycle.
Was it say that?
Yeah, on the we have Diageo mandatories. There's only so many rules I can break when I'm here, Yes. The funniest thing to me is that the drink I feel is on there itself. Like,
Is it?
I mean, if anyone who can afford this bottle, I'm pretty sure is not like crushing it, but
Yeah.
we can only hope.
Didn't that lady chug a bottle of like a $5,000 bottle of cognac at the airport one time?
Oh my God,
Oh.
no.
Like they wouldn't let her take it through security, and she was like, "I'm not dumping this," and she chugged the whole thing.
Oh my God, she must have had so many regrets.
Oh yeah.
That sounds awful.
And we can, if you want, we can grab the full one if anybody wants to take a photo. If you can, I'll hold it.
Because I think that's the most interesting thing to me, right? Because I don't know. Me personally don't know. Gosh, I don't speak English well.
You're doing great.
Well, then it must not be real because you know everything.
Not factually incorrect. Like I don't know of any other 30-plus-year-old bourbons. So for me, it's like I see the Macallan or I see whatever, and they're like opening up all fancy. Like we're just like fingerprints galore on that guy.
Yeah.
What's the perception, right? Like I think worldwide. So you talked about the Japanese and Scottish. When they see a decorative glass and experience, what do they think of the bottle and how you all have created this experience?
I think so. Like from what I've seen in Scotch, there's 2 sort of schools of like the highest end products. And some of them are these like amazing bottles that tell this incredible story, and they're like collab with some designer or something. And like, yeah, it's like a Sotheby's at the White Glove. Like but then there's also bottles that are really, really simple, and it's about this like exceptional whiskey, And I think that's more what I was going for with it. It's like,
That's cool.
it's just the exceptional whiskey. Like it's not, I don't know, and as much.
Good.
It's exceptional whiskey. I think it's beautiful. It's appropriately stunning, but like you said, it's not like it doesn't like pop out to a song,
Yeah.
Like it's
Oh, can we do that? Is that an option?
well, wait until you see actually the box for the cast strength when it comes out. Like it does I don't think it actually makes a sound. When you open it, it feels like it says like,
That
oh.
she's
She likes to make money. That's the one hint. That Diageo likes to make money. It's on the record because Diageo does like to make money. They are a for-profit business.
We're all for-profit businesses. Everyone. Yeah, it's a business. I mean, I do like the cast strength. It's just like, it would not have made sense to me to bottle it all this way. Like, I think it's pretty cool that the cast strength is zippable, even like considering the ABV that it is. But that's not how I think that most of it should be consumed. And so I'm not going to bottle 100% of it that way. No, I'm really pleased with this whiskey. And there's a funny thing, like, to get to the question that you were asking around, like, this is some of the highest end American whiskey, but it is still American whiskey. Like, I don't know, you have to balance, like, how bougie can you be?
I say it's a pretty bougie Americans. And they're typically rocking non-American designers when they're being bougie.
Yeah. It's a delicate dance.
It is.
I was hoping, like, so I have a little curve I've been trying to figure out, because pricing in this space is also really complicated. Like, what do you even compare this to? Like you said, there's not many. So, like, what's a fair price to charge for a 30-year-old bourbon that's like this high quality? So I have this little curve. This is going to sound absurd to say, considering this is a $1,400 bottle, but I really did try and make it like relatively affordable, considering
I feel that
what it could be. I'm pretty sure I could have. And I feel really confident that I could have, considering how it's being listed. But at least in the beginning, like, I want people to actually taste it.
Yeah.
That's also why we're offering it by the glass up here. So that, even if you don't want to spend $1,400 on a whiskey, like, you can still come and spend $200 and taste it, and at least have the experience of like what this whiskey tastes like, and be able to access like 30-year-old whiskey and what it tastes like. Again, that's not a dollar amount to sneeze at, but it's still much more accessible.
You get a half-ounce pour, $200. You're putting a nice.
You get an ounce pour. Yeah,
Exactly.
you get a full.
You're
yeah.
a full experience.
Yeah. You can add the water. Like, you can sit and savor. Like, you could be here for an hour with that glass of whiskey, and yeah.
I think people laugh at that analysis. An ounce is actually
What's the pour?
solid pour of whiskey.
Yeah, that's what this is.
Looking at the glassware that you typically serve it in, one, like how far versus a half ounce, and like, you just don't. A tulip shaped glass, you don't necessarily know that, like, realize how much you're getting and like how that fills the glass nicely.
And now, would you all do a flight? Like, I'm sure there's still probably some available if someone wanted to do like the upper echelon blade and bow flight, right?
Yep.
The 30 and the 22.
I think eventually we will. So right now you can get a pour of a 30-year-old. We still have a 22-year experience, so you can get a pour of that. You can also get a pour of the Stitzel Reserve 24-year-old. I'm sure at some point. Also, I have a few more things in the works.
It's a few, guys. Take that one to the bank.
These warehouses have been
Fun.
fruitful. It's funny because I started to think, like, at some point I was going through these, like, is just everything I know about old whiskey wrong? Like, have I just been wrong this whole time? Like, or have I just believed what people have told me? But then I started pulling in some old samples from other places that are not here. I was like, oh, no, this place really is special.
Yeah.
Like, there is one. I mean, there's some recently, like, the ABVs, like, some of them, the ABVs go really low. Like, sometimes it has to be quite humid for it to stay with whiskey in it. And then, but also you can get a little swampy and like dank. Yeah. I've looked elsewhere. I have of yet only been able to produce this caliber of whiskey here.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Thursday Thoughts. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, don't forget to smash the subscribe button. We will catch you next week. Cheers.